think it's like a big lesson, even in the corporate world now, that people understand that the idea of AI is not to replace people, but it's to help people be better at their work.
Yeah.
And when you sell AI that way, it makes sense to people that even want to use AI, right? So I'm not training my, my enemy.
You are welcome to the Automating Inequality Podcast.
Hi, my name is Blaise Awo, and you are welcome to another episode of Automating Inequality Podcast. On my left here is Ayodele Adeyemo, co-founder, CEO of Pneuma Care. Ayodele, tell us a bit about you and what you do.
Hey guys, hi, my name is Ayodele, like you said, co-founder CEO at Pneuma Care. We're really just passionate about, fixing healthcare in Africa and pretty much in most low-income countries around the world. And day to day, I'm very focused on thinking about products, thinking about growth, and just looking generally at, this space and thinking about, what things we can do to support governments and also make sure that much more people can have access to quality healthcare whenever they need it, as much as possible. I'm excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, great. So AI is improving so many things today, society, augmenting processes, work, and all of that, frameworks. But then, of course, we're looking at the downstream sites where AI, if not regulated, if not checked, it could lead to a lot of inequalities. And so let's even start the first question, which is, what is exciting you about AI today, and what is not exciting you about AI today?
Well, so I think generally I'm personally very excited about it. I think it's one of those things that allows us to be able to scale capabilities in the ways that we've not seen before. And what I mean is, prior to now, for you to train, to be able to do specific set of work, say, I want something to write, a little piece of code for me, as an example. That means I need someone to actually spend a few weeks to learn software to be able to do that. But today you can actually use any of these generative AI solutions to actually do that. That is what I mean by being able to scale capabilities and skilled capabilities in ways that we've never really seen before. Because what that means is actually that, you don't need to have people to learn software for a few weeks because you want to get landing page done. Even though, you have like a number of like no code solutions that you can actually use. But AI allows you to be able to scale that capability, and you can scale it to like millions and billions of people, without having to technically, worry too much in terms of like, the cost of scaling it in itself. Because again, $20 subscription, you're good. Now, so I think that's it on one hand. But then again, I think the other parts that, there are two parts that I sort of, I think, scares me a lot about AI. One is actually, again, the downside of inequality that actually, that we can potentially see. And I think, as we continue to build and, innovate around AI, maybe there's that opportunity that it becomes a lot more generalized. And what I mean is, right now, you have AI available in most, popular languages, English, French, Spanish, whatever. But like, if you think about like languages like, Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, and a few other dialects like in Africa, you don't really have that context is still missing. And when you think about the number of people that do not know how to speak these general languages, right, then it helps you to put in perspective that you still have billions of people who are still not able to
they need to consider
adopt this. So yes, we're accelerating, technology, we're accelerating access in like, the good side of the world, technically, for lack of a better word. But we're also creating a gap, and that gap would continue to sort of like grow. If we're not actually thinking about that, and then I think the second part of of AI that scares me, really, that worries me is more around the, it's just also thinking about like privacy and thinking about what does it mean for me, at what point how much of trust can we have on corporates in terms of like, how much of information they have about us,
Okay.
and how much of that goes into like, AI, and then how much of that goes into creating like, different simulations of us.
Okay.
Which, I mean, if you think back into like, the US election 2016 or thereabout,
Okay.
where, the Cambridge Analytica issue,
Okay.
right? That's also feeding based off like the information that, big media has on like people. My worry would actually be, as we continue to use AI, as we continue to like use AI to ask questions, and we talk about this context of memory in AI, which now every AI sort of like have memory and is able to like store context for a period of time.
Yeah.
The question is actually like how much of our lives is actually out there, and beyond how much of our lives is out there, it's also like, how much of us does he understand better than us, and how much of control are we actually really giving out, to people and to organizations that we do not know and are very capitalistic.
And to the algorithms itself.
It's very capitalistic in their approach. So their goal is actually to make money, and they'll use whatever tools is with their capability to actually make that amount of money. So the question is actually like, I mean, and maybe again, this gives opportunities for people to actually be able to deploy their own versions of AI.
Okay.
So maybe I'll be able to have my own AI that is running on my local machine or like on my server or on my phone.
Okay.
And I don't have to think too much about, I'm sharing my data elsewhere, because I know everything's actually just stored locally. And whenever I need to update my model, I can actually do an update, and then I continue to run it locally. I think that would probably be what we will end up getting into. But again, that's also something that is not going to be available for everybody.
Okay.
Because already today you have things like Olama that allows you to be able to like deploy your own set of models. And then you have a few other open source models that you can actually leverage as well. But then the cost of deploying, the cost of running those, it's like, this conversation in open source where you say, it's free like a puppy, not like a bear, right? So it's more like, if I give you a puppy, it's a gift. But you've got to feed it, you've got to take it to vets, you have to like constantly,
take full
responsibility of it. So that is cost, right? But if I give you a beer, you just drink it and you're good. You're good. True. So I think the cost of AI in itself is really something like that. So it's like free like a puppy, not like a beer.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a growing trend of people turning to AI companions for emotional support,
right,
and relationships. From your personal perspective, what are the key psychological implications of replacing human to human connections with AI interactions?
Well, so I think the results speak for itself. More than ever before, we are a lonely bunch of human beings. And the loneliness is not necessarily because, there are no people to talk to.
Okay.
I think we've gradually, evolved to this point where, we've forgotten that human beings have bodies. And I think, there's a book, 21st century, 21 questions for this 21st century, where, the writer was talking about, largely about how online versus in offline relationships are crucial. But the interesting thing is that, you might be on a dining table with your partner and you are not able to, your partner is basically chatting to someone else somewhere else in another country, or just scrolling through their device, and you're there and you guys just can't talk. And the way in which we've sort of like built ourselves as human beings is that we've been built in a way that we can, have relationships with people.
Okay.
And always we also operate within context, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is something that is really missing with AI. Personally, I think that building in quote relationships with the AI is much more a symptom of the bigger problem than the solution to the problem, right? And that's because we probably now live in societies where people are busier, people have low sense of trust. we're a lot more distracted, and we can't focus and pay attention, right? More than ever before. And that's like a big problem. So when I think about like AIs and relationships, I think it's literally a distraction from the actual problem, that in turn, complicates that problem in itself.
Okay.
So, and that's because regardless of whatever you tell AI, we talked about the fact that it's whatever you tell it that it builds over a period of time. It still doesn't take away that need for, that offline relationship that you need as much as possible. And I think that is really it. And again, I think the spice of certain relationships as well, is not in the agreeability of that relationship.
Okay.
I think, what a relationship with AI does is it's more like it's trying to validate what you are, who you are. It's trying to agree with you every time. And then you're asking questions and it's giving you responses within the context that it has, again, which is quite problematic because it doesn't understand the full context, right?
Okay.
It doesn't know the people. It doesn't know, how people relate, and things like that. So I think it's more, rather than thinking about it as a solution, I see it as a problem. I see it more as a symptom to the bigger problem than a solution to that problem.
Okay. So there are companies offering AI partners as a service. Now, these AI companions are available 24/7 and offer unconditional validation. How might this constant availability and perfect responsiveness affect someone's expectations and ability to handle real-world relationships?
Well, so I think, like I mentioned last question, it's not realistic, to have a perfect, all validating and, zero conflict relationships, which I think, what those are the things that AI is offered today, right? Anyone that gets themselves into that simulation needs to also understand that, the real world doesn't work this way. And I would imagine that, in a way, right? I would not imagine like a 13-year-old should be able to use like an online companion for anything, right? I would imagine that, organizations that are also like building solutions like this should, and I'm speaking more to the regulatory component because I personally believe that, this should not be happening,
Okay.
right? Organizations that are offering this should be very explicit as much as possible and also be responsible enough to say, you can only use this when you're 21 and above, right? And that's given that you have an understanding of how relationships work, right? You cannot, again, going back to my first point around human beings have bodies, regardless of how great a relationship is, there's always a longing for you to meet and see people.
Yeah.
And your AI doesn't fulfill that. Even if you have like a humanoid, right?
It still doesn't give you physical
It
connections.
still doesn't offer that physical connection. It still doesn't offer that you see me, context and insight, or feeling that people always desire from their relationships. And I think that in itself actually speaks to that, because what then it means that, at the end of the day, you still interact with people, and being able to accept the reality is essential that, you can't have zero conflict relationships. You can't have a relationship that is always validating you, because you're human, you're fallible, right?
Sure.
And part of loving people is accepting that you're fallible, right? So I think that's it.
Okay. So we know physical touch and non-verbal cues play crucial roles in human bonding and emotional development. What potential development impacts do you foresee for individuals who primarily engage in digital companionship?
Well, so again, it doesn't work. I don't think anyone should do it. And largely, I think the problem that you have there is the fact that you still end up being lonely because your AI doesn't have friends. So it's literally just the two of you.
It doesn't call you for parties.
Yeah, it doesn't call you for parties.
No birthday celebration.
Yeah, nothing
No
like
marriage
that.
celebration. Nothing.
Yeah,
no
yeah.
events.
So you still end up back in that circle.
You can't go and drink beer with the AI.
You know what I mean? So I think that's like the real thing. So it's not a solution. And that's why I'm just saying up from, like, for me, I don't think it's a solution. I think it's more of a problem. and a symptom of the problem than the solution.
Okay.
So I would definitely just advise that no one does it, because really it's really sort of like distracting yourself from that reality, and you will come back to it.
Okay, so let's talk about emotional reciprocity. How does the lack of genuine give and take in AI relationships potentially impact a person's emotional growth and maturity?
Again, it's still the same thing, right? So you think about it. Your AI can give you a gift for your birthday, right? So, yeah, and yeah, even if it were, the question is, where's the money coming from? Is it working as an agentic AI somewhere else, and things like that? But like,
it could be working in the warehouse,
Well, so the question goes back to like how we think as a society. Are you dating an AI that's working in a warehouse?
Okay.
Question, class, and things like that. So we end up in situations where the things that we're looking for. So I think that everything around AI, AI relationships, is one way. You give more than you get, and I think people generally still want to get something, and not just the validation. It's not just the sweet words, right? It's also like you want to get that feel. You want to get the word of affirmation without you having to constantly send pictures and be like, and things like that. So I think generally, the lack of reciprocity is always going to be a problem, because people love to receive.
Yeah.
Right. And even though you love to give, you still appreciate receiving. And if your AI partner can't do that for you in a consistent manner, then that's going to be a problem. And just to say, there's even like a bigger problem around, because this is driven by tech companies. What happens if one of those companies get acquired, and then you can't pay the subscription, or it gets meshed into a different solution?
Yeah.
Right.
Or they shut it down.
Or it's shut down. Like, what do you do? Right. That's like 1 million people heartbroken in one night. You know what I mean? So personally, I think it's not a solution in any way. I don't think that AI is meant to be a partner to anyone. It's not built that way. And the more we toe that pathway, the more dangerous it is for like a lot of people. The same way we are able to scale value, we can scale a lot of this disaster.
Okay. Yeah. So some people are using AI companionship to practice dating skills. Could this be beneficial, or might it create unrealistic expectations about human interactions?
Yeah. So I think it's again, AI is not meant to help you practice your dating skills in any way, shape, or form. I think less of AI in how human beings interact is essential. We can use AI to craft messages that we send to people. We can use AI to, draw arts that we share with people. We can use AI to, remind us to talk and send messages or do things like that. Just enhance those relationships. But I don't think that AI should be in between our relationships as human beings. Because again, we're very dynamic human beings. We are constantly changing, learning, and, we're adapting. And that is not at the rate at which AI can do that.
Okay.
So generally, I think one of the interesting things is we already have a very programmed sense of like, interactions, which is, which I personally find problematic. And what I mean is, we want to tailor conversation in a way because we think, or we assume, that everyone is the same.
Okay.
Right. So, and that, that's quite obvious when people meet socially or meet online, right? The kind of questions you ask is very programmed. Who are you? What do you do? What are your interests and things like that? So it's very, it follows the same way which interviews go, right?
Okay.
Which then takes away the actual value and the joy, in building very organic relationships. So using AI, I don't think it does anything. It doesn't make you better at, dating people, or make you better at, having relationships. Because again, it's not a one-way street. It's often very dynamic. So whatever happens between you and AI, right, is you that has been dynamic, not the AI that has been dynamic. So the AI is just one sort of like, a piece of algorithm that is working within the context that you provide for it, and it's trying to be very nice to you. That's all.
So do you think AI relationships might create a vicious cycle of loneliness? Could you explain the psychological mechanism behind this cycle and how it could manifest?
Yeah. So simple answer is yes. I think if you're building relationships with an AI, because the other essentials that you need, I talk about the fact that human beings have bodies, right? And understanding the need for that body, an offline community of people you can see, you can talk to, you can go watch movies together, you can go drink beer, you can go play games, whatever. And because that is actually the part that actually helps you get a lot better, right? And that is the part you can also trust to come to help you whenever you need help. So if we're spending more time, trying to build relationships with an AI, and we're already alienated with like every other digital tools that we use today. So you get back from work, because you're working from home,
Yeah.
you're on your computer all day. You get back, you're done, you put on Netflix, right? You spend 2 hours on Netflix, you spend 1 extra hour talking to your AI, and then you go to bed. You wake up the next day. It's literally that same thing that you do. You're completely alienated from the people that actually truly care about you. So technically, right, you have a situation where you don't know people don't know you, right, as such, and you can't really connect to them because you've sort of like, you're already alienated in that system. So, which is why it's, again, I go back to the point that human beings have bodies, and the value of our online relationships is that we can actually build a better network of offline relationships through communities, right? Okay. And AI doesn't guarantee that, right? So personally, I don't think that AI should play in between human interactions, but we can use AI to improve our relationships. I think that's really the caveat. So when I talk about improve our relationships, it's literally things like, oh, make this text better. Remind me, what kind of text can I send someone, and things like that. And less of asking AI for advice around how to deal with humans.
You could do stuff like maybe book a travel trip, book a hotel, book an outing,
things like that.
book an event,
right? Find a hotel that actually works for us.
Yeah, plan my birthday or plan a wedding.
Like that. I mean, even plan my birthday, I think is still like very problematic because again, I would rather us as group of friends actually do that than me telling an AI to plan a birthday.
Yeah, but you could tell it to find the best place to eat at a
town. You know what I mean? That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, makes a whole lot of sense.
So rather than trying to use AI to replace human beings, and I think it's like a big lesson even in the corporate world now, that people understand that the idea of AI is not to replace people, but it's to help people be better at their work.
Yeah.
And when you sell AI that way, it makes sense to people that even want to use AI, right? So I'm not training my my enemy technically, right? So I'm using AI because it's gonna make me better at my work, right? Not because it's gonna replace me. You know what I mean? And I think that's really the way in which we should think about it. And that applies to our relationships as well. We use AI to make our relationships maybe better, right? So you can use it to draw something schemish and then send to your partner and be like, oh, this is what you look like this morning. You know what I mean? Like, those sort of things. And everybody just laughs, right? Less of,
improve, not replace.
Not replace.
All right. So in your practice, have you encountered patients struggling with AI relationship dependencies? What concerns patterns did you observe?
Not necessarily. I think because we don't do a lot of mental health work at Pneuma Care, I mean, this extension north, what we've seen is actually people using, generative AIs to sort of diagnose their symptoms. So it's like, I have a headache, cold, fever. What do you think may be wrong? I'm using this medication. What do you think may be wrong? And what's some of this is very similar to how people have always constantly used Google.
The search.
And even today now, Google now has like, AI already integrated. So which then means that, if you search, you use AI, technically. So I think, yes, people use it. Again, and you can't stop it. Let's be honest. What you can only do is have situations where, these systems are honest enough to tell people that, hey, this is not a doctor's advice, right? You should still speak to a doctor.
Professional advice.
Right. And that's essential. And that's the way we think about it, actually.
Okay. Yeah. So AI companies are marketing AI companions as something that could help with mental ailments, right? Existing mental ailments. Now, my question is, what are downstream consequences of that? What are the ethical considerations and potential risks of people using AI for emotional therapy without professional oversight?
Well, so without professional oversight means it's not ethical.
Okay.
So I think that's the thing. So you can't. I mean, it makes sense in some ways. If, for instance, what you're using the AI for is collecting data that allows a professional to understand how to like better navigate and better support patients. So in this case, think about like patient support tools. But again, less of, using AI as the therapist,
Okay.
right? Yeah, even though like the AI has the context of the knowledge and all of that, and has data about like maybe 1 million consultations and things like that. Human beings are very different. Like
Okay.
genetically, we're very different. The way in which we process information is different. We can have patterns that are similar, but like we're, very, very, very different. And that's why like, no therapists would take two patients and deal with them the same way.
Okay.
Right. And I think that's essential to sort of note. So in the grand scheme of things, I think without professional oversight, like I said, it means it's not ethical.
Okay.
On the other hand, as well, is that we are also able to, we can use AI to collect information. And so again, it's helping therapists be better at their jobs. I think that's really,
speed of the job.
so that's really the way in which I think about, and I really advocate for AI to be used, not as a replacement, but as a way to improve outcomes. Okay. Right. And that would come up in different ways. So, I don't think anyone should use an AI as a therapist. I personally don't think so. Okay. Right. Because most of the work that therapists do is, again, having context, listening, and prescribing. Right. And that is something that is very different on a person to person basis and not on one model, but then maybe you want to use AI to sort of like diagnose. So the therapist can use AI,
okay,
but not sending the patient to use AI in this way. Yeah.
Oh, great. So do you think that it could worsen or improve existing mental health conditions?
Well, yes. Technically, I think like with just going back to that AI relationships and things like that, I think I would call it like a 50-50. If people's situations, you just need someone to listen to you. The AI can listen to you and validate you for as long as it could. But then again, it's still not the solution to the big problem. It's also you accepting in some cases that you are human, you are fallible, and you need to know how to deal with some of these situations, right? A therapist then helps you do that, not an AI. Right. Okay. So it can listen to you, but it doesn't make you a better human. It doesn't make you resilient. It doesn't make you, better at dealing with those situations. Right. So if you need a cry buddy, maybe AI works for you. But like if you need you need help from someone, then you should be talking to a therapist and figuring out the best ways to actually get better. Because I think what therapists do is not just about dealing with that situation. It's about dealing with that situation and helping you to be resilient, right? In managing, other situations such that you become a better human.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yesterday I read something online. So a group of guys on Twitter were talking about stress, AI and stress due to AI. Now with the increase in technology, outpacing human capabilities, human expectations, realities. Of course, there's also increase in revenue, and of course, people are also getting paid well. Data scientists, AI engineers, AI scientists, AI researchers, they're all being paid well, but of course, the speed at which this thing is going right now, right? I saw a bunch of people who were complaining that they are stressed. What's your thought around that?
Well, so stress in itself is not a bad thing, medically.
Okay.
Right. But then again, too much of it is not good. Like you need a balance of it. So like, um, so what I would say is the question again is what's stressing you? You gotta know, right? So it doesn't have to be work, right? It can be, the fact that you don't have outlets to actually like relax.
Okay.
It's probably the fact that you are under a financial pressure. It could be that your relationship is not working. So again, I think it's also about just figuring out what the thing is. But I think AI and if anything, the good thing, like I talk about AI, is the fact that it allows us to be able to scale capabilities.
Okay.
And part of scaling capabilities is that we're able to reduce cost in a way, but then also we're able to do. And when I think about cost, I also think about cost in terms of time and in money,
Okay.
right? So, and if you reduce cost from a time point of view, then we can do more with less
Okay.
and do more within a short time of, within a short period of time. But in terms of like, just general stress, I think with or without AI, we are always stressed, right? So, and that's because you are exerting some bit of work. You're doing some bit of work, which is exerting some bit of, taking away energy.
Okay.
But then how much of that you can actually like, balance off is essential. So what makes us better human beings and much more productive is figuring out the best way to sort of like balance the amount of pressure that we put on ourselves. Not necessarily reducing the amount of work that we do.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So that's it.
So in a nutshell, you don't think that you feel this group of individuals are exaggerating the impact of AI to them or their already existing stress, or you think the stress before the whole AI?
Yeah, I think there's always been
and
stress.
the
I
stress
think
now, you think it's not different.
personally, I think different stroke for different folks. This is very personalized sort of conversation, but
Okay.
I mean, what I would say is, see a healthcare provider, a specialist, right? So maybe a therapist or like a medical doctor or something.
Yeah.
But I can't invalidate, someone saying that they're
Their
stressed because of
perspective.
AI, because again, I don't know that context. But what I would say is stress has always been there. We've always been stressed as human beings, right? So with or without AI, you would always be stressed. Stressed. The key thing is actually figuring out, what is stressing you, what are your key stressors, and then, how do you manage them, to be honest.
Okay.
If you've not eaten for a few days, you'll be stressed. If you've overworked yourself, you'll be stressed. If you're going through like a relationship trauma, you'll be stressed.
True.
It has little or less to do with AI. Yeah, if you're thinking AI is going to take away your jobs, you definitely be stressed. So I think it's really thinking about whatever could be the actual cause in itself, less of me saying, yeah, you're exaggerating or not. Really. Yeah.
Looking at the broader societal implications, how might a widespread of AI relationships or the adoption of these companionships powered by AI, how will it affect our collective social skills and community bonds over the next decade, especially in a time where young people are seldom experiencing one-to-one connection and dating?
Well, so I think, my bet for the next decade is simple. It's that AI for relationships is a big bet, really. It's a big bet by AI companies to drive adoption of AI, right? But not less of it as a solution to loneliness or a solution to, any of the problems that we have in terms of like social relationships. And which is why I talked about the fact that it's more of a signal to the big problem, less of a solution to the problem, right? It's more like showing, hey, people have problems connecting with people. People have problems trusting people. People have problems, building real functional relationships, and people are, have very different expectations from how they meet people, right? And these are like the big problems, right? And AI companions are showing that, right? My bet, based off of that, is that over the next 10 years, people will start building, we have to build bridges that takes our online relationships to in real life, right? So, the people that you build very genuine relationships with on Twitter or on X, right? Becoming a part of your community in real life, right? Or, how do you meet people that live within your postcode, right? or how do you meet people that live within your city?
Okay.
That's really becomes the big things over the next decade. And when you think about how, like, you know, the world moves as well, very much cyclical, is that, you know, we're very used to the people that we meet around us,
Okay.
such that we now wanted to meet people and interact with people that are very far away from us. So the exciting thing about, like, you know, pen pals, or the exciting thing about, like, you know, Facebook and all of this stuff, social media platforms, was the fact that I could interact with someone who lived 30,000 miles away from me, right, without even meeting them, right? And we can have those relationships. But this thing started from things like pen pals. If you remember pen pals, you know, even pen pals when you were in, like, secondary school, you write, create a pen pal, and then you write a letter. So I think really it's sort of like evolved, and it's evolving back to the point where we then have to, so we started having communities and things like that, but communities are still very virtual. My belief is that we would move from there back into, like, actual in-person connections, right? Because that is really what's going to happen. So over the next 10 years, I see more offline relationships being built from the online relationships that people create, or these online platforms that we have. I think that's my big bet. So less of AI. I don't think AI would exist for relationships, because, again, from a capitalism standpoint, it makes a lot more. You make more money deploying AIs for corporates and enterprises than deploying AIs for you and I to actually talk to someone. It's a lot more expensive, but it's a way, a flywheel for driving adoption today.
Oh yeah. So you're building a social relationship platform.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Well, so I think, and this really started based off, like, you know, my personal experience, right? So, there are times when, you know, I just want to do stuff, and I want to do it with someone maybe new. And there are times when, you know, my friends are not interested, or my partner is not interested in what I want to do. But I still want to do it, and I don't want to do it alone, right? But I know that, you know, when I get there, I meet other people, you know, that are also there. So technically, there are people that have very similar interests, maybe not people that I actually really know. And I mean, I've been thinking really about how do you build such sort of like companies, pretty much, where people can, in a very organic, you know, sense, without any expectation of meeting something that you want, and which I think is one of the biggest problems that you have online. If you're meeting someone online today, the first idea in their head is probably like you're looking to date them, right? Whereas, you know, you can build relationships that are non-transactional, zero outcome, you know, expected, just connecting as human beings. But that's really hard. And again, when you talk about things like loneliness, it's also the fact that people are not able to truly connect with people as much as possible. So what my experiments, you know, with Link is that we can build a very small platform, really experimental, that allows people to connect with each other based off of interests. And these interests can be things like a charity walk, can be things like, you know, let's go see a movie, right? Could be things like, you know, let's go have dinner. I want to take steak, and I'd like to have steak with someone and just talk about stuff, right? Are you interested in, you know, God of War, or are you interested in Star Wars, right? And then we can chat about Star Wars and Jedi and all of those sort of things. You know, using, you know, whilst we're on dinner, or whilst we're, you know, go-karting and doing any of those sort of things. So I think that's really it. So that's really what we're doing. Expectation is that, you know, we can start testing with real humans sometime in February, March. You know, but yeah, today we're just learning the dynamics and what people might want, how they would want to, like, build real relationships. But again, like I said, it's zero expectations. Relationships are very essential, because that's really where there is no need for you to lie to someone. All right. You're literally and there's no need for likability. If you think about it, it's literally, I just want to, you know, I just want to have dinner. and I
So I
mean,
go
in
to the
New City,
cinema.
I
Yeah.
want to see a movie, or I want to do
If you're
go
interested,
karting.
let's go. Yeah.
Who is interested in
Yeah.
this? And there's absolutely no expectation for that conversation to happen again tomorrow, right? But it's sort of like feeling that moment,
Okay.
and people are sort of like happy, you know, having relationships that sort of like just, exist in that moment and can feel that moment pretty much.
I mean, I really value that because, I mean, thinking about living in the UK, being a community of immigrants where, we all just pulled ourselves up from where we, people,
Yeah, we had roots.
yeah, way back home,
Yeah.
and you're in a new country,
Yeah.
you're in a house, you're in a place where the weather is always cold, and
Yeah.
most of the time, right? And summer is just a few months. And so that means that you're probably always inside the house.
And the bad thing is that when it's summer, you also take picture yourself and then you go to another country and you're still alone there.
You're still alone,
And
right?
then you
And so,
come back.
I mean, again, being in a group of people who have immigrated here to the UK, I see people, loneliness is one of the biggest things they always complain
Yeah.
about. How can they connect? Who can they connect with?
Yeah.
Those genuine people, real people.
Yeah.
I think that's the value with what you're building with Link. Although my question is, I mean, are you going to use some sort of artificial intelligence
Nope.
in Link at all?
No.
Oh, why is that?
I mean, I think it's because again, the use case is very simple,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't require you to do too much,
Okay.
right? At least from what we understand today. I think so. There's this concept of pace layering where there are different layers to life,
Okay.
and you can't accelerate one. If you accelerate one layer more than others, or you speed up the rate at which one layer is changing, you might affect every other layer. You can cause a disruption.
Yeah.
And for me, I think AI really is accelerating stuff. It accelerates work, but we should not accelerate how relationships are built.
All right. True.
Right? People use the word love bombing, right, a lot, and I think AI bombs our relationship pretty much, and creates expectations. What we're trying to do, you don't need any AI technically to go on a date with someone.
Yeah.
You don't need AI to go on to watch a movie.
I mean, we're
with
talking about
someone.
bringing back traditional values here.
Yeah, you don't need AI to say, "Hey, let's go do go karting," right? You don't need AI to go play tennis on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's what I'm saying. Like the actual core essence of what makes us humans and makes us build bonds and connections and the things that we love to see and the things we want and desire do not really need AI.
Okay.
So, and as a person, there's no need to scale your relationships as well. So you're not trying to build relationship with 1 million people at a time. Right.
Okay.
And if you're not trying to do that, then it defeats the whole idea of trying to automate it.
Okay.
So there's no point automating a relationship if it's actually one-off, once in 2 days, once in 3 days, right? Or, every other thing happens organically, pretty much. So why use AI? So for me, and for us, like our first tenet is no AI.
Okay.
So we're not using AI for anything. We do not anticipate using AI. And I think it's, maybe it makes us contrarian in one sense. But yeah, that's okay. But like, on the other hand, I think, for every other thing that I do that has to do with work that requires skill, yes, definitely AI. Internally in the company, maybe for building stuff faster and stuff, yes. But in terms of how we think about the product for people and interfacing with people, no AI.
Okay, great. So, I think it was a few days ago, I was on Twitter and I was looking at something, a conversation, ongoing conversation. So, some of these platforms, I think this was Meta, right? So they currently maintain an AI persona, like AI persona profile on Instagram,
Yeah.
right? And so,
And on WhatsApp now too.
yeah, and it pretends to be a human being, right? And so XYZ lady, black face, and then a few other, pronouns and a few other things on the profile, trying to impersonate a human being, right? And so the ladies started interacting with the AI, asking, okay, who are you? He says, I'm an AI, I am a woman who's black, who's this, who's that, a few other things. I have 2 kids. And so the lady keeps questioning the AI, and, in a bit to understand a bit more what it was trying to do. And so what the lady was trying to do was try to break the code, right? Which she succeeded in. And then it was a point asked they asked AI, who built you? Who are your project managers? And then it mentioned the name
Oh,
of,
really?
yes. It
Interesting.
mentioned, it eventually broke, in response to answer and say, yeah, mentions the name of the actual person who, and then the person now dove in and said, okay, good. Now, how did this doctor build you? What data did he use to train you? Right? What language model did he use? And then the AI said the doctor used the profile of the persona of a lady friend of hers. Right. And so based on that interaction, we found out, okay, yeah, now using that persona already has shown that this is already biased, right? And so that conversation told me a lot of things, and it's all out there. But even on the undertone there, the AI kept saying, "How can I help you? What can we do? Tell me what your problems are." That whole
Yeah, because
companion,
it's trained to want to help. It's trained to,
yeah,
and that's what I'm saying. Like, it's essential for us as sometimes to just also accept that the value of our friends is just them being there, not necessarily to help us, right? You're not making friends with your mentors. If you need a mentor, you need a mentor,
Yeah.
not a friend. Right? So, if you need a role model, you need a role model, not a friend.
Yeah.
A friend is just someone that you know, and they know you, and you guys have interests, and you guys can just be humans, right? Clearly, yeah, they care about you care about them, and things like that. But like, not necessarily creating friends because of what in quotes you might get from them. Because necessarily, the truth of the matter is, like, if I become your friend today and we leave, I mean, yeah, we are because friends because you have a cup of water for me to drink from,
Yeah.
but I don't have anything to offer you. It's a one-way street. It's more stressful for you as a human being, right? And it's unfair for me to be asking you to be my friend because I want to drink a cup of water from you,
Yeah.
right? So I think, and which is the undertone to like my point around AI, that AI is built more to do something, less of so you can use them as I want you to do this for me. I want you to do this for me. I want you to create this for me. I want to do this for me.
Perform actions, perform tasks.
Yeah, and less of
Errands.
building connections.
Ah.
Right.
Yeah.
Less of building connections. They are good at doing stuff for you, right? They're good at saving you time. They're good at, but they're not great at replacing humans. Right. So I mean, ever since I know Snapchat has my AI, Instagram, everybody, Twitter now has Grok as well.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not necessarily. I think again, all of those things, as product managers, continue to see how people use these tools, if
Yeah.
at all they do, right? They would really tune them to actually do what they should do better.
Okay.
But like I said, AI is more valuable within a work enterprise setting.
Okay.
My opinion, actually. And then maybe just helping you answer questions, be better at your schoolwork and things like that.
Okay.
Less of replacing our relationship. I don't think I can have a better friend than you in an AI.
True. On a final note, yeah, something you mentioned about AI replacing us. Now you see everywhere, different people are building humanoids, robots.
Yeah.
We have Optimus.
Yeah.
We have GO2. We
Yeah.
have a whole lot of others there who are building
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
We have the Robo-dogs being built by Boston Dynamics.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, for me, I saw just a few days ago, I even wrote about on my LinkedIn that you could actually buy one now for $2,600.
Yeah, that's great.
Right. And so imagine
It gives us
Robo-dogs.
more time to interact.
No, hold on. Imagine hordes of Robo-dogs chasing you, for example, right?
No, they won't chase me. I mean, for real. Like, so I think, and that's the interesting thing. So,
or a humanoid breaking or robot breaking its programming. I mean, there's a lot of, almost human.
So going back to Matrix, but yeah, that's the reality. So I think there is always cost to everything. We can only trust that these companies, can. I mean, we now have autonomous cars and things like that.
Yeah.
But also I think with humanoids, the extreme clearly is breaking your code and then attacking your host, right?
Yeah.
But then, I mean, I think the good part is that we end up having more time. And I mean, I'm not sure if I've shared this bet online before, but I think I'll say it here. My big bet into the future
Yeah.
is that I see a world where people are paid to actually spend more time online. So today, people are paid to create stuff for people to spend time online,
Okay.
right? But I think sometime in the future, you'll be paid to watch a YouTube video. And we're beginning to see some elements of that trend, right? You'll be paid to, the same way you are currently paid, people can be paid to mine bitcoins, right? You'll be paid to use your computer as a compute, or to use your device as a compute, right? So this trend, we've been building technologies for some of these trends. There was IPFS and a few others previously, but like, I think over the next 20 years, 30 years, job and working will not be the things we do right now, because AI can then do a lot more things, right? Which then means that, corporates can save money and can maximize money,
Sure.
but they can only make money if people make money. So the way people make money would actually then be the things that they do. So if you take away my job, everybody can be software engineers, everybody can be, drivers, and because there will no longer be drivers because you have autonomous cars as well, and buses and all of that. What you then end up having is actually people that have more time in their hands, right? And then we spend most of that time generating content and generating more knowledge base for like these AI systems, right? And then we are paid
To interact with those things.
not necessarily to interact, but we are paid because the way in which we interact, the things we say, these AIs listen to them. Then how much of that we do, then eventually creates value, and we always pay for the value that we create. So if our conversation goes up there, then we get value, right? If I spend more time interacting and watching someone's videos, right, and watching ads, right, then I get value for it.
That makes sense. That makes sense. That
Yep.
makes a whole
I
lot
mean,
of sense.
so already you have so if you use like Brave, right?
Yeah,
When the Brave browser came
Yeah.
out, there was a feature that allows you to get paid for ads. If you turn on ads, you get paid in crypto
True.
for those ads. And I think that's like a very simple model of what I see in the future, that if you watch ads on YouTube, you watch YouTube and things like that, you get paid for actually doing those things.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank
Great.
you so much, AY, for coming
Thank you.
to this podcast.
It's been a lot of fun.
And we wish you all the best with your social relationship platform called Link.
Yeah, thanks. Hopefully it would, I mean, it's looking good right now. But yeah, we're looking forward to what that looks like in March. Hopefully.
Okay, great.
Great.
Good job.
Thanks.
The Automating Inequality Podcast.